A man's tongue is the leash that binds him. The fool does not know when to stay silent. He exposes his weakness through words meant to sound strong. In this video, we dissect the phrases that reveal a man's ignorance, destroy his authority, and make him prey in the eyes of the powerful. Observe the world long enough, and you will notice that the most dangerous man is not the one with a sword, but the one who cannot control his mouth. The weak speak to be liked, the wise speak to be obeyed. Every careless word betrays a secret insecurity, emotional need, a hunger for validation. And in the game of power, these are fatal. So tonight, we unmask the speech of the stupid man, the phrases that expose his naivete, strip him of influence, and make him a pawn in a world ruled by wolves. They say, "I don't care what people think." The words sound brave, independent, powerful. But in truth, they are the anthem of the powerless. Because only a man drowning in insignificance declares his indifference to perception. The man of true influence doesn't need to say it. He shapes what people think, then silently benefits from their belief. Ask yourself, if you truly didn't care, why speak of it at all? Why announce to the world that you are beyond its judgment? Because deep down, you crave that validation, the illusion of strength through rebellion. The fool confuses ignorance with independence. He mistakes carelessness for courage. But indifference, when genuine, is quiet, strategic, and selective. In every court, kingdom, or boardroom, perception governs survival. A prince without armies may still rule if men believe in his power. But a king who ignores appearances soon finds his throne eroded, not by enemies, but by whispers. Consider Caesar Borgia, the model of ruthless control. He didn't waste breath claiming he didn't care what others thought. He crafted every perception like a weapon. His generosity made him loved, his cruelty made him feared, and his image, carefully sculpted, made him untouchable. That is power, not rejecting judgment, but controlling it. Psychologists call it impression management. It's the silent war fought in every human interaction. Your tone, your timing, your silence, all shape how others define you, and their definition becomes your reality. A stupid man rejects this truth. He tells himself he's being real, when in fact he's exposing his weaknesses for all to see. His emotional outbursts, his careless words, his defiant tone, they become tools in the hands of others. Manipulators love such men, because a man who doesn't care is predictable. You can trigger him easily. You can provoke him into revealing his hand, his insecurity, his desperation to appear above judgment. Every reaction betrays a piece of his soul. Understand, this power doesn't require you to be fake. It requires you to be aware. Your image is a weapon, and every weapon demands discipline. When you speak, you are not merely communicating. You are negotiating perception. When you walk into a room, people's minds begin writing your story before you open your mouth. The question is, are you the author of that story or its subject? You may think this is manipulation. It is. But so is everything that works in the real world. Even nature manipulates. The predator camouflages itself to deceive the prey. The flower disguises its trap with color and scent. Survival, in its purest form, is the art of managing appearances. So ask yourself, when you say, "I don't care what people think," what you're really saying is, "I refuse to learn how to wield perception." In the age of kings, image decided whether a man lived or died. In the age of social hierarchies, it decides whether he rises or fades into obscurity. Reputation is the currency of influence. Lose it and you lose everything that depends on it. Trust, opportunity, power. Even the humble merchant knew this truth. He polished his reputation like gold, knowing it was worth more than his coin. One rumor of dishonor could destroy him faster than any debt. So what do you think happens to the modern man who mocks reputation? He becomes noise in a world ruled by narrative. And in a world of noise, only those who control their image are heard. Let's expose a darker truth. When you say you don't care, you're not freeing yourself. You're surrendering. You're admitting defeat in the battle of perception, because it's easier to claim indifference than to master the art of control. The wise do not chase approval. They manufacture it. They understand that power doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being defined advantageously. They know when to appear humble to invite trust, when to appear ruthless to command obedience, and when to vanish into silence, letting others project greatness onto them. This is not deceit. It is strategy, truth sculpted by intention. So, remember, the man who says, "I don't care what people think," is already exposed. The man who remains silent, while subtly guiding what others think, holds the true power. You must decide which you wish to be. The one who declares his strength, or the one whose silence makes others believe it. Because power does not belong to those who ignore perception. It belongs to those who rule it. And that is the first mark of intelligence, the understanding that image is not vanity, but strategy. The fool rejects it, the ruler refines it. But what of the man who boasts, "I'm always honest"? He too believes he stands above the game. And yet, his truth may become the very rope that hangs him. We'll explore that next. I'm always honest. A statement worn like a badge of honor by the naive, the reckless, and the unstrategic. They mistake transparency for virtue, forgetting that in the world of power, honesty is not a principle. It is a weapon. And like every weapon, it must be wielded with precision, or it will cut the hand that holds it. The fool believes truth must always be spoken. The wise man knows truth must be used. There is a difference. To speak truth at all times is to walk naked through a battlefield. Every enemy sees your intentions, your fears, your weaknesses. They learn how to strike you, when to flatter you, and where to break you. Have you ever noticed how manipulators rarely lie outright? They simply omit what weakens them. They reveal only the truths that build their control. The rest, they keep in the shadows, waiting. Honesty in the hands of the clever becomes camouflage. It earns trust, only to later deliver deception more smoothly. Because people do not fear what feels genuine. In Florence, long before power became a performance, the cunning learned to survive by what they concealed. A merchant who told the truth about his failing business invited ruin. A diplomat who confessed his doubts invited betrayal. Only those who mastered selective honesty could rise without becoming a target. History does not reward the most truthful. It rewards the most useful liar. Consider this: a ruler may confess his compassion publicly, gaining the love of his people. But in private, he acts without mercy when power demands it. He lies not out of malice, but out of design, and so his empire endures, while the honest man dies proclaiming his virtue. Psychology calls it strategic self-presentation. You do it every day, though you may not admit it. You smile at those you dislike. You agree to things you will later undo. You tell half-truths to maintain peace. The difference between the powerful and the weak is awareness. The weak do this unconsciously, apologetically. The powerful do it deliberately, with full control of consequence. So ask yourself, when you say, "I'm always honest," are you being noble or careless? Are you speaking truth to enlighten, or to relieve your guilt? Because many men confess not for virtue, but for weakness. They crave relief from the burden of deception. But a ruler carries that burden with composure, because he understands truth is a luxury, not a duty. Let's dissect a common trap. Someone asks you a question that places you in danger. Do you trust me? The fool answers directly, hoping honesty will earn respect. The wise man redirects. He asks a question in return, disarming the inquirer. He never lies, but he never exposes the full truth either. You see, real honesty is not about words. It's about timing. A truth told at the wrong moment destroys alliances. A lie told at the right moment can preserve peace. What matters is not sincerity, but strategy. In the art of manipulation, truth is the most dangerous lie because it is believable. It doesn't raise suspicion. It builds confidence. The best deceivers mix truth with falsehood until even they can no longer separate them. Why? Because when you weave truth into deception, you create something sacred in the eyes of others. They trust you more fiercely than they should. And by the time they see through it, it's already too late. But there is a moral illusion at play. Society teaches you to value raw honesty as a sign of purity. They don't tell you that absolute honesty makes you powerless in a world built on masks. The man who always tells the truth is predictable, and predictability is death to influence. If you want to survive among wolves, you must learn to use truth as they use silence, rarely, and with intent. Even silence can be a form of truth. Sometimes withholding words is the most honest act of all, because truth is not owed to everyone, only to those who can wield it wisely. So when someone proudly says, "I'm always honest," listen carefully. You are hearing a confession, not a virtue. You are hearing a man who has not yet learned the cost of sincerity. The world rewards those who speak wisely, not those who speak truthfully. And the difference between the two decides who commands and who obeys. But what of the man who says, "I deserve better"? He too wears his weakness as pride, unaware that power never begs. It simply takes. Let's expose that illusion. Next, "I deserve better," a simple phrase, but beneath it lies the seed of weakness. It sounds noble, like self-respect, but often it's the cry of entitlement, a man demanding rewards from a world that owes him nothing. Power does not care what you deserve, it only yields to what you take. The fool waits for recognition. He believes fairness governs fate. He thinks that if he works hard, if he's kind, if he's patient, the universe will someday repay him. But the world is not a god. It does not keep accounts. The powerful understand this. They know reward follows strategy, not suffering. And that expecting fairness from chaos is the first step toward defeat. Have you ever noticed how the weak man explains his failures by saying, "I deserved better"? It comforts him. It makes him feel moral in his loss. But moral comfort is the luxury of those who have surrendered ambition. History has no sympathy for the deserving. It remembers only the decisive. Look to the ruins of Rome. The Senate was filled with men who believed they deserved to rule. They had titles, lineage, tradition, but then came a young general who didn't wait for permission, Julius Caesar. He didn't claim to deserve power. He took it. He understood that power rewards action, not virtue. The same truth plays out every day. The man who waits for promotion because he deserves it will rot in mediocrity. The one who maneuvers alliances, builds perception, and positions himself advantageously, he will rise whether he deserves it or not. Psychologists call this illusion entitlement bias. It's the belief that effort alone guarantees reward. But effort without leverage is invisible. And the world doesn't pay attention to the invisible. When you say, "I deserve better," you're admitting that you've placed your power in someone else's hands. You are waiting for them to deliver justice instead of creating advantage. Do you see how dangerous that is? You've turned yourself from player to pawn. Power responds to control, not complaint. The powerful do not ask for better. They engineer better. They change their environment, manipulate perception, and reframe narratives until their reality bends to their will. They understand that better is not received. It is constructed. Even the smallest manipulator knows this. He doesn't say, "I deserve love." He becomes indispensable to those who can offer it. He makes himself the source of pleasure, the answer to need. And once dependence is built, reward follows. He doesn't appeal to fairness. He designs necessity. But let's expose the psychology behind the phrase. When a man says, "I deserve better," what he truly means is, "I am powerless to demand it." He's frustrated because he's bound by ideals he thinks are moral, yet those very ideals prevent him from acting effectively. He clings to fairness as if it's protection. But fairness is only enforced by the strong. Without strength, your sense of justice is nothing but noise in the wind. So ask yourself, do you want to be right? Or do you want to be in control? Because the man who wants control stops asking what he deserves. He studies the game and learns how to win it. There's a reason rulers rarely speak of what they deserve. They speak instead of what must be done. They know that public sympathy is fleeting, but dominance endures. Even the great conquerors cloaked their ambition in necessity. They spoke of destiny, of duty, of order, never of fairness, never of deserts. Because the moment you justify your actions through deserving, you admit weakness. You admit you're still asking for permission. The world does not give permission to those who dominate it. This illusion of deserving also hides another weakness: emotional dependence. The man who believes he deserves more from others, respect, love, loyalty, has made himself hostage to their validation. He measures his worth by their response. He becomes predictable, easily controlled. But the strategist doesn't ask for love or respect. He makes himself valuable enough that others cannot function without him. He doesn't deserve better. He becomes better than everyone else's options. That is how you win in silence. Entitlement blinds men to their lack of leverage. They curse the system, yet never learn how to rule within it. They protest the unfairness of life instead of mastering its machinery. If you believe you deserve better, prove it. Not by shouting, but by becoming unavoidable. Build skills that replace complaint. Build presence that replaces pity. Because power is not a gift. It is taken quietly, strategically, by those who have accepted that the universe owes them nothing. The world does not reward your pain. It rewards your pressure. So stop whispering, "I deserve better." Start designing what better looks like, and claim it before someone else does. But what happens when that same weak man cries, "That's not fair"? Now we enter the territory of delusion, where justice becomes a shield for failure. We'll tear that illusion apart. Next, "That's not fair." The favorite phrase of the powerless. It sounds righteous. It feels moral. But it reveals something fatal, a refusal to understand how the world truly works. Because fairness is not a law of nature. It is an illusion created by those who already hold power to keep those without it obedient. The child cries, "It's not fair," when denied a toy. The adult cries it when denied opportunity. But the wise man never utters it at all. He looks at the game, studies the rules, and bends them quietly in his favor. He does not seek justice. He seeks leverage. Have you ever noticed how those who complain of fairness rarely win? They wait for others to fix what they could have conquered. They pray for balance in a world built on hierarchy. And yet history whispers the same truth again and again. The world does not reward fairness. It rewards strategy. Look at the story of the Medici. Bankers turned rulers. Merchants who rose higher than nobles. Their rivals cried, "Unfair." How could men without royal blood command Florence? But while others protested, the Medici moved in silence. They didn't demand fairness. They bought it through loyalty, manipulation, and gold. They made the rules favor them, and soon even their enemies called them rightful leaders. That is the power of perception over principle. When a man says, "That's not fair," he admits defeat before the game has even begun. He measures the world by how it should be, not how it is. But the strategist accepts reality coldly, without sentiment. He asks, "What advantage can I extract from this?" That single question transforms victimhood into power. The fool resists the system. The wise man learns to navigate it. Psychologists call this mindset external locus of control, the belief that your fate is ruled by forces beyond your influence. It's the mindset of dependence, and nothing kills power faster than dependence. When you cry unfair, you surrender your agency. You hand your strength to others, hoping they'll make things right. But fairness is never granted. It is negotiated. And negotiation requires leverage. Leverage, in turn, requires cunning. It demands patience, silence, and the willingness to play the long game. Let's be brutally honest. The world has always belonged to those who learn to exploit imbalance. Kings taxed the peasants, not because it was fair, but because it was effective. Empires conquered lands, not because they had the right, but because they had the strength. The powerful don't justify their actions through fairness. They justify them through results. And while the weak moralize, the strong calculate. Think about modern life. The man who works hardest often earns the least. The one who plays politics, who understands influence and image, he ascends. You can hate it. You can call it unjust. But your emotion changes nothing. The question is not whether life is fair. It's whether you are clever enough to benefit from its unfairness. There is an old saying, "When the game is rigged, become the dealer." That is the Machiavellian answer to injustice. Don't rage against inequality, use it. If the system favors appearance, master appearance. If it favors connection, build alliances. If it favors deceit, learn the language of masks. Do not waste energy demanding fairness from those who profit by denying it. Take what they guard, quietly, strategically, because no one will make the world fair for you. They will only make it profitable for themselves. Even morality bends beneath the weight of advantage. The powerful man defines what is just. His enemies call him cruel, but his people call him necessary, and history remembers him not as good or bad, but as effective. So, when you find yourself saying, "That's not fair," pause. You're revealing your weakness aloud. Instead, learn to think as a ruler does. Ask, how can I make this imbalance serve me? The man who adapts will always dominate the man who protests. There's a cruel beauty in this philosophy. Once you stop expecting fairness, you become untouchable. You stop waiting for mercy. You start creating outcomes. This detachment, the ability to see injustice and still maneuver through it, is what separates the predator from the prey. Fairness is emotional, strategy is eternal. So remember this: the world will never be fair. It was never designed to be. But if you learn to turn unfairness into opportunity, you become the kind of person the world cannot ignore. Because while others cry out for justice, you are already building your throne from their noise. But what happens when arrogance replaces awareness? When a man begins to say, "I know everything." That is when ignorance becomes fatal, and will uncover that final downfall. Next, "I know everything." It's the sentence that ends growth. The phrase that kills wisdom before it's born. Because the moment a man believes he knows, he stops learning. And the moment he stops learning, he begins to decay, while thinking he's still ascending. Arrogance is the most silent form of stupidity. It flatters the ego even as it blinds the mind. Have you ever met someone who believes he has life figured out? He talks loudly, interrupts constantly, dismisses what he doesn't understand. He confuses confidence with competence. And because he believes he cannot be wrong, he never improves. Such men are common. They dominate rooms with words, yet accomplish little. They mistake noise for influence. But the strategist, the true player in the game of power, knows that intelligence is not in speaking, but in observing. He listens, not to agree, but to collect ammunition. He knows that silence exposes more than arrogance ever will. There is an ancient truth: the more you learn, the more you realize how little you know. The fool never reaches that understanding, because ignorance, wrapped in confidence, feels like wisdom. History is filled with such men. Kings who dismissed their advisors, believing their instincts infallible. Rulers who destroyed empires because they preferred pride over perception. Take the fall of King Xerxes. He ruled the Persian Empire with absolute command. When his generals warned him against invading Greece, he mocked their fear. He believed his armies too vast, his rule too divine. But arrogance blinded him to reality. And in the narrow straits of Salamis, his fleet was annihilated by men he considered inferior. That is the fate of those who say, "I know everything." Their downfall is not sudden, it's inevitable. Psychologists call this the Dunning-Kruger effect. The ignorant overestimate themselves, while the competent underestimate, because true intelligence knows the complexity of truth, while ignorance sees simplicity and calls it mastery. When a man believes he knows, he stops questioning. And questioning is the source of all control. To question is to remain adaptable. To question is to keep learning how the game shifts, how the players evolve, how perception changes. Arrogance freezes you in time. You might think confidence is power, and it is, but only when grounded in awareness. False confidence, however, is poison. It isolates you. It deafens you to advice, blinds you to danger, and makes you predictable to those who study you. Because the proud man reveals himself easily, his vanity demands validation. Flatter him, and he lowers his guard. Challenge him, and he explodes. Either way, he becomes easy to manipulate. Have you ever noticed how manipulators handle such people? They never argue. They agree. They feed the illusion of superiority until the arrogant one walks willingly into the trap. The wise man doesn't fight arrogance. He uses it. In politics, in war, even in love, arrogance is a lever. Napoleon's brilliance turned to blindness when he began to believe his own legend. His earlier victories came from adaptability, but once he crowned himself emperor and declared destiny his ally, he stopped listening to reason. Russia froze his army, and his empire crumbled beneath the weight of his certainty. Arrogance blinds even the intelligent. It whispers, "You are too great to fall." And by the time reality answers, it's already too late. So, how do you avoid this trap? You cultivate doubt. Not weakness, but deliberate uncertainty. You learn to challenge your own thoughts before others do. You train yourself to listen, not because others are wiser, but because information is power, and pride filters information out. The wise ruler surrounds himself with minds that contradict him. He listens, filters, and decides. He does not cling to being right, he clings to being effective. Because in the game of power, truth changes form. Yesterday's wisdom becomes today's weakness. And only those humble enough to adapt survive its evolution. Think of it this way: the fool says, "I know everything." The wise man says, "Teach me more." The master says nothing at all. He learns by watching, calculating, adjusting. Ignorance speaks. Wisdom listens. Mastery observes. When you declare that you know, you close your mind. When you remain curious, you open paths others cannot see. And that is where power truly hides, not in knowledge, but in the hunger for it. So remember this: the loudest man in the room is rarely the most intelligent, only the most insecure. The quiet man, the one who watches, learns, and waits, he becomes dangerous. Because when you believe you know everything, your game ends. But when you believe you know nothing, your domination begins. And now, the final truth awaits. The one that ties all these lessons together. What happens when conscience itself becomes your weakness? That is the question the wise dare to ask. Next, power is not taken by force alone. It is taken through influence, quiet, invisible, irresistible. The greatest control is not when people obey your command. It is when they believe it was their idea to obey. You guide their emotions, shape their perceptions. Let them feel free, while every choice leads exactly where you want it. That is mastery. Not loud, not violent, subtle. The art of pulling strings from the shadows while smiling in the light. So ask yourself, are you being obeyed, or are you being played? Do you move others, or are you still one of the pieces? Because in this world, someone is always controlling someone. The only question is, will it be you? If this truth unsettles you, good. It means you've begun to see how power really works. Now, share your thoughts below, subscribe to sharpen your strategy, and share this video so others can awaken from the illusion before it consumes them. Control quietly, rule invisibly. That is how power endures.